Have you ever driven through a place that seemed quiet enough to disappear into the background? A place surrounded by endless rice fields, gentle rivers, and villages where life still moves with the rhythm of nature. A place that many travelers pass without ever stopping, without ever wondering, without ever asking what stories lie beyond the road. Most people think they already know Madiun. They imagine a city famous for Pecel, a region associated with martial arts, a peaceful agricultural landscape somewhere in the heart of East Java. But what if that familiar image tells only a tiny fraction of the truth? What if beneath those green fields stands a land that has witnessed centuries of transformation, a place where ancient forests once covered the earth, where myths blended with history, where kingdoms rose and disappeared, where traditions survived the passing of generations, where ordinary villages quietly preserved extraordinary stories. Kabupaten Madiun is not merely an administrative region in East Java, it is a living archive, a landscape where every village, every river, every mountain slope, and every local tradition preserves pieces of Indonesia's cultural memory. Located in the western part of East Java province, Kabupaten Madiun shares its borders with several neighbouring regions that have shaped its identity for centuries. Its strategic location has allowed people, cultures, ideas and trade to flow through its lands, long before modern highways connected Java. For generations, agriculture has become the heartbeat of daily life. Rice fields stretch toward the horizon. Sugarcane plantations reflect the region's long agricultural history. Fruit orchards flourish beneath the tropical sun. Small rivers nourish fertile valleys that continue supporting thousands of farming families. Yet what makes this region remarkable is not simply its productivity. It is the way nature and culture continue to exist side by side. Traditional ceremonies are still performed. Local wisdom is still respected. Stories once shared only around village fires are still remembered by elders who pass them down from one generation to another. Some of these stories sound almost impossible. Others blur the line between legend and documented history. Together, they create a cultural identity unlike any other. One of the most fascinating mysteries begins with something every place possesses: its name. Today, people simply call it Madiun, a name spoken naturally by millions, printed on maps, written on road signs, mentioned in weather reports. Yet few stop to ask where this name actually came from. The answer takes us deep into local folklore that has survived for centuries. According to one of the most widely known traditional stories, the word Madiun originated from two old Javanese words. The first is Medi, meaning ghost or spirit. The second is Ayun Ayun, meaning to sway or move gently back and forth. Combined together, these words describe something haunting, a place where unseen spirits were believed to wander among towering trees as branches swayed with the wind. Long before villages, roads, or rice fields existed, this region was said to be covered by dense forests. The trees grew so thick that sunlight barely reached the ground. Wild animals roamed freely. Mist settled among the trunks every morning. For travelers entering these forests, the silence itself could feel overwhelming. Stories spread quickly. People believed mysterious figures appeared between the trees. Strange sounds echoed through the darkness. Moving shadows frightened anyone brave enough to cross the wilderness after sunset. Whether these tales described supernatural encounters or simply reflected humanity's fear of untouched nature, they became part of local memory. One figure appears repeatedly in these stories: Ki Ageng Rongo. According to local tradition, he played an important role in opening and developing this once isolated forest into a place where people could eventually settle. Clearing ancient forests in those days demanded extraordinary courage. The challenge was not only physical, it was also spiritual. Many communities believed every forest possessed invisible guardians. Before cutting trees or building settlements, rituals were often performed to seek harmony between humans and nature. These beliefs reflected a worldview deeply rooted in respect for the natural environment. The forest was never viewed as empty land waiting to be conquered. It was understood as a living world deserving humility. As settlements slowly expanded, the terrifying wilderness gradually transformed into productive land. Trees gave way to fields, paths became roads, communities emerged, markets appeared, families built homes. Children grew up hearing stories about the haunted forest their ancestors had once feared. The frightening past slowly evolved into cultural heritage. Today, historians recognize that folklore should not always be interpreted literally. Instead, these legends reveal how earlier generations understood their surroundings. A dangerous forest could easily become remembered as a place inhabited by spirits. Unknown sounds became supernatural warnings. Towering trees became symbols of mystery. In many cultures across Indonesia, stories like these served another purpose. They reminded people to respect nature, to avoid arrogance, to recognize that human beings are only one part of a much larger world. That message remains surprisingly relevant today. As modern development continues across Indonesia, ancient forests disappear at unprecedented speed. Traditional knowledge risks being forgotten. Yet stories like the origin of Madiun remind us that previous generations understood something profoundly important. Nature is not merely a collection of resources, it is a partner in human survival. The legend surrounding Madiun's name, therefore, becomes more than an entertaining tale. It becomes a reflection of humanity's relationship with the environment. It reminds us that every city, every village, every community was once wild land, waiting for courageous people willing to build a future while respecting the past. But the story of Madiun did not begin and end with one mysterious legend. Long before the name Madiun became officially recognized, this land carried entirely different identities, names that many Indonesians have never heard, names that reveal how places evolve through history just as people do. Every name represents a different chapter. Every chapter reflects changing political powers, shifting settlements, and growing communities. Long before maps displayed the word Madiun, local people knew this region by another name, Purbaya. Although historical documentation from that era remains limited, the name itself survives as part of regional historical tradition. Over time, another transformation occurred. The region later became known as Wonoasri. In the Javanese language, this name carries beautiful imagery. Wono refers to forest. Asri suggests beauty, serenity, and lush natural surroundings. Together, the name paints a picture of fertile landscapes where forests and human settlements existed in harmony. It reflects a land defined not by crowded cities or towering buildings, but by abundant nature. One can almost imagine what travelers might have witnessed centuries ago. Rolling green hills, towering tropical trees, crystal clear streams, the songs of birds echoing across untouched valleys, fields gradually expanding as communities cultivated the fertile volcanic soil. Life moved according to the changing seasons. Rain brought renewal. Harvest brought celebration. The forests provided timber, medicinal plants, clean water, and shelter for countless species. Even as civilizations slowly expanded, the surrounding natural environment remained central to everyday life. Then history reached another turning point. On the 16th day of November in the year 1590, the name Madiun officially became associated with this region. That date is now commemorated as the anniversary of Kabupaten Madiun. It represents more than a simple administrative change. It symbolizes the beginning of a new chapter in the identity of the region. Names matter. They preserve memory. They connect generations. They become symbols of belonging. When people proudly introduce themselves as being from Madiun today, they inherit centuries of history carried within a single word. Few realize that behind this familiar name lies a remarkable journey through forests, legends, settlements, and evolving civilizations. And that journey is only beginning to reveal the extraordinary character of this remarkable land. History is rarely created overnight. It grows slowly, generation after generation. One decision leads to another. One village becomes many. One pathway becomes a trading route. One community evolves into a region whose influence reaches far beyond its borders. That quiet transformation is exactly what happened in Madiun. As centuries passed, agriculture became the foundation upon which life flourished. The volcanic soils of East Java proved remarkably fertile. Season after season, farmers cultivated rice that fed entire communities. Sugarcane spread across broad plantations, becoming one of the region's most valuable agricultural commodities. Corn, cassava, peanuts, soybeans, and countless other crops added diversity to local farming traditions. Unlike large metropolitan areas where concrete gradually replaces green spaces, much of Kabupaten Madiun has managed to preserve its rural character. Even today, visitors traveling through the region are greeted by sweeping landscapes of emerald rice fields stretching beneath wide tropical skies. During planting season, farmers carefully prepare the flooded paddies by hand and with modern equipment, continuing agricultural practices that have supported families for generations. When harvest arrives, the scenery transforms into a sea of golden rice, gently swaying beneath the warm East Javanese sun. These landscapes are more than beautiful. They are symbols of resilience. Every harvest represents months of patience. Every grain of rice reflects countless hours of labor. Every successful growing season demonstrates the close relationship between human determination and the rhythms of nature. For many families, farming is not simply an occupation. It is an identity passed from parents to children. Knowledge about rainfall, soil conditions, irrigation, planting cycles, and local weather patterns is often learned through experience rather than textbooks. This practical wisdom has enabled communities to thrive despite changing economic conditions and environmental challenges. The rhythm of village life follows these agricultural cycles. Morning begins before sunrise. The sound of roosters echoes across neighborhoods. Motorcycles carry farmers toward their fields. Neighbors greet one another with warm smiles before beginning another day's work. Markets gradually come alive as fresh vegetables, fruits, spices, and local products arrive from surrounding villages. Unlike crowded urban centers where time often feels rushed, many parts of Kabupaten Madiun still embrace a slower pace that allows traditions to remain deeply rooted. Children walk to school while passing rice fields. Families gather for communal meals. Village celebrations continue to strengthen social bonds that have existed for decades. This sense of togetherness forms one of the greatest strengths of rural Indonesia. Communities often solve problems collectively. Neighbors help build houses. Farmers share irrigation systems. Religious celebrations become opportunities for entire villages to unite, regardless of social background. These values have helped preserve social harmony through changing times. Yet agriculture alone does not define the identity of Kabupaten Madiun. There is another tradition that has become inseparable from the region, a tradition built upon discipline, honour, respect, self-control, and extraordinary physical skill. Across Indonesia, mention the name Madiun, and many people immediately think of one thing: martial arts. For decades, this region has earned an extraordinary reputation as one of the country's most important centres of pencak silat. This reputation is so deeply embedded that Madiun proudly carries one of its most recognisable nicknames, Kampung Pesilat, the village of martial artists. Unlike ordinary nicknames created for tourism campaigns, this title emerged naturally because of the remarkable concentration of martial arts communities that have grown here over many generations. Within Kabupaten Madiun and its surrounding areas stand several of Indonesia's most respected pencak silat organisations. Among the most widely recognised is Persaudaraan Setia Hati Ternate, commonly known as PSHT. Founded in the early 20th century, the organisation has grown into one of the largest pencak silat fraternities in Indonesia, attracting millions of members across the country and abroad. Another influential institution is Ikatan Keluarga Silat Putra Indonesia Kerasakti, widely known as IKSP Kerasakti. Its philosophy emphasises discipline, loyalty, and personal development alongside martial excellence. Also closely associated with the region is Merpati Putih, a renowned pencak silat organisation recognised for combining traditional martial techniques with intensive breathing methods and mental training. Although each organisation possesses its own unique history, philosophy, and training system, they share common principles rooted in Indonesian culture. Respect your teacher, protect the weak, control your emotions, develop inner strength before seeking physical power. These values transform pencak silat into something far greater than fighting. For many practitioners, martial arts become a lifelong journey of character building. Training often begins at a young age. Children learn proper posture, balance, discipline, respect. Only after mastering these foundations do they progress toward more advanced techniques. The goal is never violence. The goal is self-mastery. This philosophy reflects one of the deepest principles within traditional Indonesian martial culture. The strongest person is not the one who defeats others. The strongest person is the one who conquers themselves. Visitors attending martial arts demonstrations in Madiun often witness movements that appear almost like dance. Every step carries meaning. Every hand movement reflects centuries of refinement. Every sequence combines effectiveness with artistic beauty. Traditional music sometimes accompanies performances, creating an atmosphere where culture and martial skill become inseparable. UNESCO recognised Indonesian pencak silat as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity in 2019. That recognition highlighted not only the physical techniques, but also the cultural values, ethical teachings, rituals, music, and community traditions surrounding the practice. Regions like Madiun continue playing an essential role in preserving this priceless heritage. Throughout the year, martial arts festivals, competitions, and cultural events bring together practitioners from different schools and provinces. Although rivalries occasionally exist between organisations, the larger purpose remains the same: to preserve a tradition that represents one of Indonesia's greatest cultural achievements. For local communities, seeing children train in pencak silat is nothing unusual. It has become part of daily life. Training fields fill with students after school. Village halls host practice sessions well into the evening. Parents proudly watch their children develop confidence, discipline, and respect. In many ways, pencak silat has become woven into the social fabric of Madiun itself. It influences education, community activities, traditional ceremonies, even local identity. The nickname Kampung Pesilat therefore carries profound meaning. It represents generations of dedication. It honours teachers who devoted their lives to preserving traditional knowledge. It celebrates students who continue carrying those lessons into the future. And it reminds Indonesia that true strength is measured not only by physical ability, but also by wisdom, humility, and integrity. In an era where modern entertainment often dominates young people's attention, the continued popularity of pencak silat in Madiun demonstrates that cultural traditions can remain relevant when they continue inspiring new generations. The legacy is alive, not inside museums, not locked within history books, but inside training halls, village courtyards, school fields, and the hearts of countless practitioners who proudly preserve one of Indonesia's oldest living traditions. Yet after intense training comes another tradition that locals cherish just as deeply, one that brings families together around dining tables, one that welcomes travellers with unforgettable flavours, one simple dish that has become one of the strongest symbols of Madiun's identity, a plate that tells its own remarkable story. That story begins with ingredients that many people might consider ordinary: fresh vegetables harvested before sunrise, steamed rice prepared with care, fragrant herbs grown in fertile soil, and a rich peanut sauce blended with a balance of sweetness, savouriness, spice, and aromatic citrus leaves. Separately, they are simple. Together, they become something unforgettable. This is nasi pecel, a dish that has become inseparable from the identity of Madiun. Across Indonesia, the words Pecel Madiun immediately evoke images of vibrant vegetables arranged neatly over warm rice, generously covered with thick peanut sauce, whose flavour is both comforting and deeply satisfying. Although Pecel exists in several regions of Java, the version associated with Madiun has earned a reputation for its distinctive taste. Its peanut sauce is carefully prepared using roasted peanuts, chilies, palm sugar, garlic, tamarind, and selected local spices. Every family often has its own secret recipe. Some prefer a sweeter profile. Others create a sauce with stronger chili heat. Many add aromatic kaffir lime leaves that give Madiun Pecel its unmistakable fragrance. No matter the variation, the philosophy remains the same. Fresh ingredients, balanced flavours, simple presentation, extraordinary satisfaction. For local residents, Pecel is far more than breakfast. It is comfort food. It is family tradition. It is part of everyday life. Long before modern cafes and international restaurant chains appeared across Indonesia, village markets throughout Madiun were already serving plates of Pecel to farmers preparing for long days in the fields. Workers stopped before sunrise for a warm meal. Students enjoyed affordable breakfasts before school. Families gathered on weekends to share simple but nourishing food. Generations grew up with the familiar aroma of freshly prepared peanut sauce drifting through neighbourhood streets every morning. One reason Pecel has endured for so many decades lies in its remarkable nutritional balance. Fresh spinach contributes iron and vitamins. Bean sprouts add texture and nutrients. Long beans provide fiber. Cabbage offers freshness. The peanut sauce supplies healthy fats and plant-based protein. Rice delivers energy for the day ahead. Together, these ingredients create a meal that is both delicious and practical for active communities whose daily lives often involve physical labor. In many households, preparing pecel is an act of care. Parents wake before dawn, vegetables are washed carefully, peanuts are roasted until fragrant, spices are ground patiently using traditional stone mortars. Nothing is rushed. The final dish reflects not only culinary skill, but also love expressed through food. Visitors quickly discover another characteristic of Madiun's culinary culture: hospitality. Many small food stalls are operated by families who have served customers for decades. Owners often greet guests as though welcoming old friends. Regular customers rarely need to place complicated orders because the sellers already know their preferences: more chili, less sauce, extra vegetables, additional tempeh. These personal connections transform eating into a social experience rather than a simple transaction. Markets become places where stories are exchanged alongside meals. Conversations begin between strangers. Friendships grow over shared breakfasts. This warmth reflects one of the strongest values found throughout rural Indonesia. Food has always brought people together. Yet pecel is only one chapter of Madiun's culinary identity. There is another delicacy whose name has traveled across Indonesia, a sweet treat that many travelers intentionally search for before leaving the region: brem. Soft, light, delicately sweet, with a texture that melts almost instantly upon touching the tongue. For people unfamiliar with Indonesian traditional foods, brem often creates surprise. At first glance, it appears simple: small white blocks carefully packaged for travelers. But behind this modest appearance lies generations of craftsmanship. Traditional brem is produced through a fermentation process using glutinous rice. This technique requires patience, experience, and careful attention to detail. The fermentation process develops unique flavors that distinguish authentic brem from ordinary sweets. The final product offers a delicate balance between sweetness and subtle acidity, creating a taste unlike almost any other Indonesian confection. Although nearby areas such as Karuban have become especially well known for producing brem, the delicacy has become closely associated with the broader Madiun region. For many travelers, bringing home boxes of brem has become an essential tradition after visiting. Families share it during holidays, guests receive it as gifts, friends exchange it as souvenirs representing East Java's culinary heritage. The popularity of brem demonstrates an important truth. Traditional foods survive not because they compete with modern desserts. They survive because they carry stories. Every recipe preserves knowledge accumulated over generations. Every production method reflects local resources and environmental conditions. Every bite connects the present with the past. In an age dominated by mass-produced snacks and global food brands, products like brem remind us that authenticity still matters. People continue searching for flavors that cannot be replicated by factories alone. They seek experiences rooted in place, culture, history, identity. Madiun offers exactly that. Its cuisine reflects the agricultural abundance surrounding the region: peanuts grown in fertile fields, rice harvested from productive paddies, fresh vegetables supplied by nearby farmers, traditional spices cultivated throughout Java. Every ingredient tells part of a much larger story, a story about communities living closely with nature, a story about families preserving recipes through oral tradition, a story about resilience in the face of changing times. Even as supermarkets expand and international restaurants become increasingly common, Countless local food vendors continue preparing pecel exactly as their grandparents once did. The stone mortar remains, the roasting pan remains, the family recipes remain. These simple acts of preservation ensure that cultural heritage survives not inside museums, but within everyday life. Food also plays a powerful role during local celebrations. Traditional ceremonies, religious gatherings, community festivals, family reunions. Meals become symbols of gratitude. Sharing food expresses respect. Offering guests the best dishes reflects generosity. In these moments, cuisine becomes more than nourishment. It becomes language, a language of hospitality understood by everyone, regardless of age or background. Perhaps that explains why so many visitors remember Madiun not only for its scenery or history, but also for its flavors. Long after returning home, memories often begin with taste. The richness of peanut sauce, the freshness of vegetables, the softness of warm rice, the delicate sweetness of brem slowly dissolving on the tongue. These experiences remain vivid because food has an extraordinary ability to preserve memory. Yet, beyond its culinary treasures and martial traditions, Kabupaten Madiun protects another kind of wealth, one that cannot always be tasted or purchased. A wealth measured in forests, rivers, wildlife, fertile landscapes, and the remarkable biodiversity that continues to thrive across this peaceful corner of East Java. Because the greatest treasures of Madiun are not always found on a dining table. Sometimes they are hidden beneath towering trees. Sometimes they soar through the sky. Sometimes they bloom quietly in places where only the most curious travelers ever choose to look. Nature has always shaped the destiny of Madiun, long before kingdoms established their influence, long before roads connected villages, long before maps gave this region a name. The land itself determined how people would live. Its rivers became lifelines. Its fertile plains became sources of prosperity. Its forests became places of mystery, survival, and spiritual reflection. Even today, although development continues to transform many parts of Indonesia, Kabupaten Madiun still preserves landscapes that remind visitors what Java once looked like before rapid urbanization changed so much of the island. Travel through the countryside and the scenery changes almost effortlessly. Rice fields stretch across wide valleys like endless green carpets. Small rivers wind quietly between villages, carrying clear water that has sustained agriculture for generations. Bamboo groves sway gently with the breeze. Fruit trees stand beside family homes, providing shade as well as harvests. The air often feels cooler than in larger cities, especially during the early morning when mist still lingers above the fields. It is easy to understand why so many people describe rural Madiun as peaceful. Yet beneath this calm landscape exists an extraordinary web of life. Every ecosystem supports countless species that work together in delicate balance. Birds scatter seeds that help forests regenerate. Insects pollinate flowering plants that later become crops. Streams support fish and amphibians that contribute to healthy aquatic environments. The forests shelter mammals, reptiles, and countless forms of life that many visitors never notice. Biodiversity is not simply about rare animals. It is about relationships. Every living organism plays a role. When one disappears, the entire system changes. That is why protecting nature is not only about saving wildlife. It is about protecting the future of communities whose livelihoods depend upon healthy ecosystems. For generations, local people have understood this connection. Traditional farming methods often developed alongside careful observation of seasonal cycles. Farmers watched the arrival of migratory birds. They observed rainfall patterns. They understood which insects benefited crops and which threatened harvests. This knowledge was accumulated slowly through experience rather than laboratories. It became part of everyday wisdom passed from parents to children. Modern science increasingly recognizes the value of such traditional ecological knowledge. Communities that have lived closely with nature for centuries often possess insights that complement contemporary environmental research. In Madiun, many of these traditions continue quietly, even if they rarely attract national attention. Villagers still understand the importance of protecting water sources. Many continue planting trees around springs and riverbanks. Community cooperation remains essential when maintaining irrigation canals that distribute water fairly among agricultural fields. These practices demonstrate an important lesson. Sustainability is not always a new concept. Sometimes it is an old tradition that simply deserves renewed appreciation. The natural beauty of Kabupaten Madiun also creates opportunities for tourism. Travelers searching for tranquility often find something increasingly rare: silence. Not the silence of emptiness, the silence filled with birdsong, flowing water, rustling leaves, the distant sounds of village life. In recent years, interest in nature-based tourism has continued to grow across Indonesia. Many travelers have begun seeking destinations that offer authentic experiences rather than crowded attractions. Madiun possesses enormous potential in this regard. Rolling hills invite hikers, forested landscapes reward photographers, agricultural villages allow visitors to experience daily life beyond the pace of urban centers. Traditional markets offer glimpses into local culture that cannot be replicated elsewhere. For those willing to slow down, every journey through Madiun becomes an opportunity to reconnect with something increasingly valuable: simplicity. The region is also home to a number of natural attractions that continue attracting domestic visitors. Clear springs provide refreshing escapes during the tropical heat. Small waterfalls hidden among lush vegetation reward adventurous travelers. Hills offer panoramic views where sunrise gradually illuminates endless fields below. These places may not always appear in international travel magazines, yet they possess a quiet beauty that leaves lasting impressions. Unlike destinations overwhelmed by mass tourism, many corners of Madiun still allow visitors to experience nature without crowds. There is space to breathe, space to listen, space to appreciate the landscape as it truly is. This authenticity has become one of the region's greatest strengths. As travelers around the world increasingly search for meaningful experiences rather than superficial entertainment, places like Madiun stand ready to offer something genuine. Not luxury, not extravagance, but connection. Connection with nature, connection with local communities, connection with history, connection with oneself. Nature has another remarkable characteristic. It constantly surprises us. Even in places that seem familiar, extraordinary discoveries remain possible. Throughout history, scientists have repeatedly demonstrated that important discoveries do not always emerge from famous research centers or remote expeditions deep into unexplored jungles. Sometimes they happen in places where people have lived for generations, places that seemed ordinary until careful observation revealed something extraordinary. Kabupaten Madiun is no exception. The region has drawn scientific attention because of its rich natural environment and biological diversity. Researchers studying Indonesia's ecosystems understand that Java, despite being one of the world's most densely populated islands, continues to support remarkable biodiversity. Every forest fragment, every river system, every protected habitat holds the possibility of expanding humanity's understanding of the natural world. The discovery of uncommon plant species, insects, amphibians, birds, and other forms of wildlife across different parts of Indonesia reminds us that nature still holds countless secrets. Each scientific observation contributes another piece to the enormous puzzle of life on Earth. This is why conservation matters. Protecting habitats is not only about preserving beautiful scenery, it is also about safeguarding opportunities for future knowledge. Every species that disappears forever takes unique genetic information with it. Potential medicines, agricultural innovations, ecological insights, scientific understanding, all can be lost before humanity even realizes what existed. For younger generations growing up surrounded by technology, this lesson carries particular importance. The future will require scientists, environmentalists, engineers, farmers, teachers, community leaders, all working together to protect the natural systems upon which civilization ultimately depends. Madiun offers a powerful reminder that progress and conservation do not have to compete. They can support one another. Modern infrastructure can coexist with sustainable agriculture. Economic development can encourage environmental responsibility. Tourism can strengthen conservation when managed wisely. Communities can preserve cultural heritage while embracing innovation. This balance may become one of the greatest challenges of the 21st century. Places like Kabupaten Madiun demonstrate that such balance is not impossible. It begins with respect. Respect for history, respect for nature, respect for local wisdom, respect for future generations who deserve to inherit landscapes that remain healthy and productive. Every tree protected today becomes shade for tomorrow. Every river kept clean becomes a source of life for countless families. Every cultural tradition preserved becomes a bridge connecting the past with the future. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden within this quiet region of East Java. Its greatest treasures are not measured by skyscrapers, not by population, not by headlines. Its true wealth lies in the values that continue guiding everyday life. Hard work, community, discipline, hospitality, respect for nature, pride in cultural identity. These qualities cannot be built overnight. They are cultivated slowly across generations, just like the fertile fields that have sustained Madiun for centuries. And for those willing to look beyond the surface, they reveal why this remarkable region deserves far more recognition than it often receives. There is a common belief that the most extraordinary places are always the most famous, that if a destination truly mattered, everyone would already know about it. History tells a very different story. Some of the world's greatest treasures remained hidden for centuries, not because they lacked value, but because few people took the time to look closely. Kabupaten Madiun is one of those places. It does not demand attention with towering skylines. It does not compete with the busiest tourist destinations. It does not rely on spectacle to impress its visitors. Instead, it reveals itself gradually. The longer you stay, the more carefully you observe, the richer the experience becomes. Walk through one of its villages at sunrise, and you begin to understand why. Morning light slowly washes over fields that have fed communities for generations. Farmers prepare their tools before the heat of the day arrives. Children in neatly pressed school uniforms greet neighbours with warm smiles as they begin another day of learning. The scent of freshly cooked rice drifts from family kitchens. Motorcycles hum quietly along village roads, while small food stalls welcome their first customers. Nothing feels hurried, nothing feels artificial. Life unfolds naturally, following rhythms that have remained familiar for decades. These everyday scenes may appear ordinary, yet they reveal something increasingly rare in the modern world, a community that still values connection over speed, relationships over convenience, tradition alongside progress. This balance is one of Madiun's greatest strengths. Development has certainly arrived. Roads have improved, education has expanded, technology has become part of daily life. Young people use smartphones, businesses embrace digital commerce, students access knowledge from around the world with a single tap. Yet amid these changes, many local traditions continue to survive. Families still gather for communal meals. Neighbours still help one another during weddings, harvests, and times of hardship. Traditional ceremonies continue, marking important moments in life. Respect for parents, elders, teachers, and community leaders remains deeply embedded within local culture. This continuity matters because culture is not preserved only through monuments or museums. It survives through everyday habits, through conversations, through shared meals, through celebrations, through stories repeated from one generation to the next. Every grandparent who tells a local legend keeps history alive. Every parent who teaches a traditional recipe protects cultural identity. Every martial arts instructor passing on ancient techniques ensures that wisdom continues beyond a single lifetime. Perhaps this explains why visitors often describe Madiun as feeling authentic. Authenticity cannot be manufactured. It cannot be built overnight. It grows through consistency, through communities choosing to preserve what truly matters while embracing necessary change. This spirit also shapes the younger generation. Across schools, universities, community organisations, and cultural groups, many young people are working to celebrate their heritage while preparing for the future. Some become entrepreneurs who introduce local products to wider markets. Others document village traditions through photography and filmmaking. Many promote tourism using digital platforms, inviting travellers to discover places that previously remained overlooked. This new generation understands something important. Preserving culture does not mean rejecting modernity. It means ensuring that progress never erases identity. Technology can amplify tradition. Social media can introduce forgotten stories to global audiences. Digital innovation can strengthen local economies without sacrificing cultural roots. The future belongs to communities capable of balancing both worlds. Madiun demonstrates that such a balance is entirely possible. Its agricultural heritage remains vibrant. Its martial arts traditions continue inspiring millions. Its culinary identity grows stronger with every visitor who experiences authentic Pecel Madiun or takes home boxes of traditional brem. Its natural landscapes continue offering peace in an increasingly noisy world. Its people continue proving that kindness remains one of the greatest forms of wealth, and perhaps that is the most remarkable fact of all. The true value of Kabupaten Madiun cannot be measured only by statistics, not by its total land area, not by its population, not by economic reports. Its greatest strength lives within its people. People who wake before dawn to cultivate fertile fields. People who dedicate years to mastering martial arts, not for violence, but for discipline and character. People who preserve recipes passed down across generations. People who protect traditions while welcoming visitors with genuine hospitality. People who quietly build strong communities without asking for recognition. These are the foundations upon which every great civilization is built: integrity, perseverance, mutual respect, a willingness to work not only for personal success, but for the well-being of the entire community. As Indonesia continues moving toward the future, places like Kabupaten Madiun remind us that development should never come at the cost of identity. Economic growth matters, infrastructure matters, innovation matters, but culture matters too. History matters, nature matters. Because once they disappear, they cannot simply be rebuilt. That is why every traditional market deserves appreciation. Every historic site deserves protection. Every local language, every folk story, Every cultural performance, every recipe, every farming tradition, and every martial arts school represents a living chapter of Indonesia's extraordinary heritage. Lose one chapter, and the national story becomes incomplete. Protect them, and future generations inherit something priceless. So the next time you hear the name Madiun, do not think only of a place on a map. Think of ancient forests that inspired enduring legends. Think of villages that grew into thriving communities. Think of fertile fields that continue feeding generations. Think of martial artists whose strength begins with humility. Think of plates of Pecel prepared with recipes refined through decades of care. Think of soft pieces of brem that carry the taste of tradition. Think of peaceful landscapes where nature and humanity still coexist in remarkable harmony. Because Kabupaten Madiun is far more than a destination. It is a story of resilience, a story of transformation, a story of culture, a story of ordinary people accomplishing extraordinary things through patience, hard work, and unwavering pride in their heritage. And perhaps the greatest lesson Madiun offers is this: the places that shape a nation are not always the loudest. Sometimes they are the quiet regions where traditions endure, where communities remain united, and where history continues to breathe through everyday life. If we take the time to discover places like Kabupaten Madiun, we do more than explore a beautiful corner of East Java. We discover another piece of Indonesia itself, a nation whose greatest treasures are not only found in its famous landmarks, but also in the countless communities that faithfully preserve the spirit, wisdom, and cultural richness that make this archipelago unlike anywhere else on Earth. Because in the end, every remarkable place has a story, and now you know one of Madiun's.